Building a family can be a complicated, messy, lonely, and sometimes heartbreaking process. But you don't have to navigate this challenging journey alone. Welcome to the AllPaths podcast, where we support and celebrate all of the different ways there are to try to grow your family. I'm your host, Emily, from the nonprofit organization AllPaths Family Building. And today, in honor of Valentine's Day, we're going to be talking about relationships and family building. And to help me out, I'm joined by my wonderful husband, Andy. Together, we will be answering some of the questions that you submitted, sharing a bit about our own family building journey and the impact it had on our relationship, and hopefully helping anyone who is currently navigating this feel a little less alone. But before we start, I just want to acknowledge that we're a white, cis, hetero couple, so our perspective and experiences are definitely not meant to be representative of every person's or every couple's. And neither of us are mental health professionals or relationship experts. So please keep that in mind while listening. But if you are interested in connecting with someone who is an expert, reach out to us at admin@allpathsfb.org and we can help you out with that. So, Andy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners?
My name's Andy. I've been married to Emily for just about 20
I was
years.
like, do you know the number?
About 20 years. We have triplet 13-year-olds. So this is reaching back into quite a ways.
Yes. And I don't know that we've ever actually talked about like our family on the pod before. So yes, we have triplets. They were conceived via IVF. So like I said, we are definitely not experts on relationships or any of that. But we're here just to answer some questions and chat about things from our perspective. So how was the experience of going through IVF and fertility treatment with a partner? How would you describe that?
Complicated. I think it's fair to say it stretched both of us in some ways that we were not anticipating.
Probably wouldn't have signed up for if we had known.
Like going into the process, right? It was emotionally much more difficult than I think we expected in. I think everybody, when you go into it, you think you're going to be. I think it's really normal to think that you're going to be doing it once, and you're going to do it, and it's going to work, and that's that. And our journey had quite a few more twists and turns. So I think that was really complicated. I think it really forced us to think hard about how we communicate in our relationship and the kinds of things that the way we talk to each other, especially in times of stress, and especially when those times of stress are like kind of constant. And then, I mean, for me, it really, I think, forced me to reckon with a lot of like my understanding of what it meant to be a partner, a husband, and sort of all of those things. It really kind of, for better or worse, going through this process of family building really sort of redefines what that means for you, and it challenges a lot of that meaning for you in some really difficult ways. So yeah, it was quite a journey.
Yeah, 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Like we always say, it's, we're happy to meet the people that we meet through this work, but we always feel really bad and wish it wasn't for these reasons. But yeah, no, I think communication can play a huge part in how you navigate this as a couple. I know I definitely wasn't good at that at some points. But I think just, being willing to continually work at it. I think one of the hardest parts for me, and I think for a lot of people who are doing with this with a partner, is that typically when you go through a hard time in your life, the other person is your main support. And speaking for myself, I think it was really hard to try to rely on you in the same way I would have for like, I don't know, something with work or whatever. But you're also going through it. And same thing, like I wasn't sure how to be a good support person because I was drowning in all of my own, complicated feelings.
Yeah. And a lot of that was exacerbated by the really complicated long-term medical procedure you were going through at the time. Right? Like we were taking medications, a lot of just doctors and stuff that went on at that time.
That's a nice way of saying Lupron made me
Yeah.
crazy, but okay. Well, no, and that's I think one of the hard things for a lot of hetero couples going through this process is that it is very unbalanced in terms of the medical side of things. And I shouldn't say just hetero couples, for couples where any one partner is going to be carrying, you bear the brunt of a lot of the medical side of things. I will say selfishly, so going in, I expected like me to be the problem when we weren't able to conceive, because I had been told in high school that, oh, you probably have endo, but it was never confirmed through surgery. So I was like, okay, great. This is my fault. It's me. And this feels weird to say, but selfishly, I was glad that like they found things wrong with each of us, because then I was like, okay, it's not just my fault.
Honestly, so was I.
Okay, that's good to know.
Because I remember, so like we each had small surgical fixes that were required to sort of proceed with this process. And I remember feeling like strangely relieved about it,
We could share the fault.
Yeah. Because and like I don't know that I was necessarily thinking in terms of like fault or blame. You know what I mean? I never at any point like blamed you for our infertility struggles. This was something that you and I were kind of going through together. But yeah, I do remember feeling strangely relieved because it was a tiny component of this whole process that I had direct control over. Whereas as the non-carrying partner in this relationship, there's just a profound sense of powerlessness as you're going through it. It's everything is happening to your spouse.
Yeah.
And while the outcome is something that's like profoundly important to you as a person, it's the procedure itself and the drugs and the shots and checkups and the retrieval and the implantation, all of that stuff happens to your partner. And so you feel like you're there for support and you're there to help and you're there to try to, be someone that they can lean on and rely on through this process. But wow, it's tough sometimes because you feel like there's nothing you can directly do to make it better. And so like I didn't enjoy getting surgery, but I enjoyed the fact that it was something like that I could do. So yeah, I kind of shared that relief.
Yeah. Although, and then it's funny, so because you mentioned the control piece. I mean, a lot of this is just being like, I have no control over anything anymore. I think in a lot of ways, we were kind of lucky that initially, I mean, I remember our first appointment with an RE, they were like, oh, you have these things wrong. You have these things wrong. Here's how we'll fix them. And then we'll go forward. And we're like, oh, great. This is not bad at all. And then we had those things fixed and things continued not to go well. So we ended up with the diagnosis in quotation marks of unexplained infertility, which is essentially like we have no idea what's wrong, but we're gonna keep throwing things and seeing what sticks.
We went through all of that and it didn't work anymore.
Yeah. So that was frustrating. I think that for me, even though it was further into the process, I think we had already done one round of IVF at least. Before then, I was kind of like, oh, okay, like this is shitty, but we know what we need to do to fix it. We know what we need to do. It'll work. We'll be okay. And then all of a sudden, for them to sit there and be like, oh yeah, the past, year that you've spent having surgeries, doing IVF, going through all of this, we still were just like, well, something's wrong. I think that for me was like a low point.
Yeah. Our fertility doc is presenting our case to his peers to try to ask help. And we loved our fertility doc. He's a great guy, but like he was funny. I will say, looking back, he had zero bedside manner, but I liked that. I didn't want somebody who would be like nice and flowery. I'm like, no, just give me the facts. I will deal with the emotional piece afterwards. I don't need you to like get emotional with me, which is not everyone's style, but I did appreciate that. He was direct and to the point. We always left our appointments with the information.
Yeah. I think it was around that time. So that was probably after our first cycle that ended in an ectopic pregnancy, which again, 0 out of 5 stars would not recommend. That sucked. Okay. Also, how in my head it was such bullshit. I'm like, we've gotten all the way here. I'm like, I physically watched you put that embryo in with a catheter. What do you mean you lost it? Like it's just gone. It moved. I'm like, okay, that's another thing. One thing that I think was super helpful because like, yeah, I feel like we got to a point where this is all you talked about. This is all we thought about. This is all we talked about. There was no way to escape. I think one of the best things we did for our own mental health and for our marriage was the second round, the 2-week wait trip.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that. Unfortunately, depending on what state you're listening to this podcast in, it's going to, that your financial burden is going to be a little bit different. But like any sort of break in the routine that you can give yourself during that waiting period is really helpful. I remember feeling like we could be ourselves and exist as a couple for the first time in what felt like forever.
Yeah, just like leaving our apartment.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, we're leaving all of our problems behind us. This is great. We don't have to think about it.
We did bring the Sharps box, right? So it really felt like a kind of a return to the before times for a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I think that went a long ways. And like you were saying, not everybody has the ability to jump up and go. But even if like go stay at a friend's house for a couple days, like anything to break out of that routine. Because I felt like everything just got bogged down. And there were like places in our house where I'm like, this is where I was sitting when I got that really shitty phone call. So like everything is a constant reminder. Yes. But yeah, I mean, I guess to make a long story short, we did eventually have success. And now we're parents to triplets. So some people submitted questions that we can chat about. Again, like I said, we are not mental health professionals or relationship experts. This is just our take. And hopefully, if you're listening and you're going through your own family building journey, even just, knowing that people are struggling with similar things as you are might be helpful. So we kind of broke them down into different categories. So let's start off with communication challenges, which I think we
had plenty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anybody, I mean, in the best of times, if you have a partner, communication challenges arise. And when you're going through something as stressful as fertility treatment or a family building challenge, like, even more so. So the first question we got is, what should you do if you're feeling unheard or misunderstood by your partner? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think first to kind of know that this is normal. It feels strange to sit on the other side and be like, here's our advice for going through this process. There's if you're listening to this and you're going through it currently, I think the last thing either one of us want to do is give the impression that either of us handled this like flawlessly. Like it was messy and it was hard and it involved a lot of tears and a lot of really big emotions. And it put a lot of honest to goodness strain on our marriage. And like we're fortunate, to be sitting here on the other side of it. But like, I don't want to give anybody the impression that we kind of like figured it out and just
held hands and skipped through the no, it was a disaster.
Like upped our communication and really worked at it. And like we did, but it involved a lot of crying and a lot of yelling and a lot of feeling upset. And I don't, of all the people in this community that we talked to about their experiences with IVF, I've yet to meet someone who describes themselves and their partner as sort of moving through this process seamlessly, right? Like it's hard and it's gonna be hard and I think because it's so important to the people who elect to go through it, that it carries with it a ton of really big emotions. Right? Like the stakes felt huge because this was our family. This was the future we wanted for each other. And so within that context, I think it's really normal to feel unheard or misunderstood, because not only are you experiencing like just the most dramatic, life-changing stuff personally, but the person closest to you is going through the same thing. And they're a different person, and they're going to process it differently, and they're going to go through it differently, and they're going to express how they're feeling differently and in a way that you're not necessarily going to understand. I think the times we handled it best were the times when we approached it with as much curiosity, I think, as we could, really trying to understand how the other person was feeling about this. We really had to do it during times when we weren't feeling really sad or really angry or really powerless, right? So it had to be at those sort of calmer moments when we could be like, hey, how are you feeling about all this? I think just making sure that we're not presuming to know how the other person is feeling through all of this was really helpful. And again, there were plenty of times that both of us did and got really mad about it. But like, I think approaching it with that level of curiosity was really helpful. That was a really long answer.
I like that though. That was a good answer. Like going back in time, all the things I should have done. So it kind of ties into this next question. What's the best way to bring up difficult topics? And I know my favorite way to do it was, well, learning through error. Sometimes I would have the conversations, and you're going to be really surprised by this.
I'm shocked, I'm sure.
Have the conversations that I thought would happen in my head and then get mad and then come to you having already had this whole argument. So I would say bring it up early before you have a chance to spiral over it. And I really like, not just when we were talking about things with, fertility treatment, but just in general, like difficult conversations. I think when you're moving, at least for me, like that helps my head. I don't know, like going for a walk. I mean, there's feet of snow out, so that doesn't work out. But even just like,
we took a lot of long walks.
Yeah, going somewhere, just being able to walk and talk at the same time. I feel like that, I don't know, helps my brain function. And I also feel like it's not that awkward. Like we're sitting and staring at each other and having this deep conversation. Like you don't have to make eye contact if you don't want to, which can sometimes help. I don't know. What would you say for that one?
Yeah. Best way to bring up difficult topics. I think with persistence, it's hard to reach back because that whole period felt like one giant big difficult topic. You know what I mean?
Fair.
And to a certain extent, every day was a discussion of a difficult topic, right? Because until the very end, it was like we were either in the cycle going through it, or we were, in the waiting period, which is worse, or we were coming out of a failed cycle and discussing whether or not we could physically or emotionally handle another go round. I mean, so practice definitely helps. I think that's one thing if you're going through this process to sort of be aware of going in, like you're going to have a lot of difficult conversations. It's important to both of you, but it's also like it's like you're going to be constantly in communication with each other, forced to be in communication with each other about some really personal medical stuff. And that's true. That's hard.
If you are not already at that level with your partner, you're going to get real comfortable talking about real awkward things quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because no one, like, unless you have a friend, like a close friend who's gone through this process, who was open and willing to share, or you've got a community of people who have gone through this process beforehand, you're both of you going through it for this first time. And so like, it's tricky. I would say be persistent, keep at it. Don't, the last thing you want to do is just keep it all to yourself, because that's how that isn't going to work. That's how you burn out. That's how you break down.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next question we've got up here is, how can we have productive conversations when we both feel emotionally raw? I think for me, one thing that helped a lot was I really had to reframe the goals of our conversations. Like the goal, and it's tough when your spouse is going through something really difficult, because you're like, one of the ways you want to be supportive is to not cause additional emotional stress, right?
Fair.
And not, be the reason why your partner, who has so many other upsetting things happening to them, don't be the reason why, an additional reason why they are upset. And so I really had to reframe those conversations at that time and be willing to kind of like sit with a little bit of upset, right? Like the goal, and this took a long time. But like the goal of these conversations was not to avoid feeling upset. That there was no way to have these conversations and avoid being upset. That like, because it is an upsetting topic, and you are going through something that's really like emotionally difficult and heavy, that you can't go into these conversations with the goal of not making the other person feel sad or upset or angry, right? So yeah, and that again, I want to own that is not to imply that we did this perfectly. We did it imperfectly far more often than I think we see.
Oh, I don't think I did this well at all.
Yeah,
particularly this question. Yeah, no, this was not my strong suit.
Yeah.
No, I like that answer, and that's interesting. Like looking back, because it
was really hard.
It was really hard. Yeah, I'm not somebody who likes talking about my feelings, so I'm just not good at this. So I don't know if I would have any advice on how to have a productive conversation. I guess, I mean, doing it while moving, like having something else to do so that like you can get kind of that nervous energy out in another way. But that's, I don't know. Your answer is much better than mine. All right, so let's switch gears. This one's kind of related. So we had some questions around grief, because, whether you have a pregnancy loss or not, there are so many layers of grief that you go through when you're on this journey. And this is a topic that comes up a lot in our support groups too, is, how do you handle grieving when you and your partner grieve differently? Yeah. So actually, yeah, this first question kind of hits the nail on the head. How do you navigate it when one partner is more outwardly emotional while the other internalizes? And I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
I think there were days where I was like, he doesn't care about any of this. He's not sad. He's like, yeah. Because I was so wrapped up in my head and so miserable all the time. I think everybody knew I was having a hard time.
Yeah, and I was going through it being like, can't show her you're sad. Got to keep it together for her, and all I
wanted was for you to just be like, yeah, this sucks.
Yes, I know. And I was sitting there being like, she's feeling shitty enough for the both of us. You don't need to add on to it. Yeah, I think we dealt with that pretty
poorly. Yeah. No, but I think it is hard because there's I get what you're saying. Like you try to kind of balance it out, but then that can backfire. I think there's no way to really navigate it. I think you just have to acknowledge that like people grieve differently. And if for some reason that's bothering you, then just ask about it.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you?
Yeah, that like curiosity from the beginning.
Yeah.
This is a process that's going to make you and your partner acutely aware of all the different ways the two of you process like
anything
traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
Right. Like it really helps you and your partner kind of understand all the ways the two of you think differently. And so I think approaching it with a little bit of curiosity and presuming that the other person, not presuming what the other person might be feeling in the moment, and understanding that they are like a brain that exists outside of yours, and they are going to be processing and thinking about this in a different way. Yeah. Is really helpful. It's tough when you've been together for a while, right? Because you feel like you understand what the person is thinking completely, right? Yeah. And that is simply not the case. But like if you've been together for a while, and we've been together for 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
Right. Like
it'd have been a while. What do you mean I can't read your mind?
Right. And so like understanding,
yeah,
that dynamic is really, really helpful. Like I think the last thing you want to do is not grieve. Like this is a hard process.
Yeah.
And you're going to be feeling like a lot of grief and sadness that's going to come at you sort of unexpectedly, which was a new experience for me. I'm usually pretty like my baseline is generally pretty calm, and I was not used to getting like emotional reactions when I saw other people's young children. Like that was a new one.
Yeah.
We had some dear friends who conceived accidentally in the middle of this process.
That was tough.
And like it was so hard to be joyful for them, and also so mad and so upset and so just angry at the same time, right? And so like we were grieving for what we thought was going to happen to us.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, you still have to grieve. You just have to approach your partner with some curiosity because you don't always know what they're thinking.
That is very true. Well, that kind of answers this next question too. What do you do when your different coping styles look like a lack of support to your partner? So what I should have done was be curious instead of just being like, he doesn't care. That's what I'm learning.
Very seen by this question. And what I probably should have done is like maybe share some of my feelings and help to and sort of understand that like in the sharing of the feelings, I was being supported. And I was letting someone know that things that they are feeling are also felt by you, and that is not additive, right? It's something that actually helps in the moment. That is not how I was thinking about that.
That's okay. But yeah, I like that answer. So let's get down and dirty.
Yeah, for sure.
This next section is about sex and intimacy. And as we all know, when things start to get medicalized, it's just not fun anymore. So we've got a couple of questions around that. So let's start with when you're kind of earlier on in the trying to conceive process. How do you handle the pressure of scheduled sex and performance anxiety?
Well, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I remember at the beginning thinking that it wouldn't. I remember at the beginning being like, great, like it's going to be on the schedule. This will be lovely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
This is the fun part about having kids.
yeah, it's a scheduled time for us to be intimate, and that lasted about a week, and then if that, and then it was
A week. I would say after like the first couple months when you're still like, oh yeah, it's exciting. And then you're like, what are we doing?
yeah,
Nothing's working. Nothing like
yeah, yeah,
this is fun, I guess.
yeah.
Like,
That swap from something you want to do to something you have to do is
yeah.
it's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And it carries with it a lot of, I mean, um, I think unfortunately in our culture, like there's like virility is tied pretty closely to masculinity,
Mm.
and like how you're supposed to think of yourself as a man and a male, and like that component of it was pretty hard. And so I remember like that being difficult, and when that's on your mind, that makes any sort of intimacy difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I think like there's a level of persistence you got to approach it with. I think a level of communication, like,
Yeah.
you really, like all things having to do with intimacy, like you really have to know your partner, and you really have to be able and comfortable talking to your partner about
Yeah.
like the levels of intimacy that you're having in that moment, because it's hard. It's really difficult.
Yeah. I think one of the challenging things for me too was it's less about like the pressure of scheduling sex, but it was more the like as it became more obvious, like my body's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's not getting pregnant. Like I had a lot of anger and resentment towards my body. So I got to where I'm like, what? Who would want to have sex with me anyways? I don't want to have like no, like all of this just wants to shut down because it's not working. Like, what's the point?
I had those same feelings of self-consciousness too, and that
Yeah.
same sorts of like, well, why isn't my body
Right.
like functioning properly, right? Why isn't this happening? It's really hard to be intimate when you're self-conscious.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, especially if you are kind of in those earlier stages where, you're past the like, we're making a baby. You're a couple months, years, however, long you are into the process and you're still trying to cut yourself some slack and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
If we miss this one window this month, like it's been 7 months now, that's not gonna make or break us.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Like your mental health and your emotional well-being is more important than like sticking with the schedule, which I know feels really hard to do, especially when especially as women, all you're getting is this message that like you're going to be too old. You're probably already too old to get saved. So like time is of the essence, but pushing back against that a little bit and just be like, no, like if we're not up for this tonight, like that's okay.
You really have to find those spaces, and those times for you to feel close to your partner,
Mm-hmm.
because like normally that can be through sex, right? But
Yeah.
When you're going through this sort of process, that's much more difficult.
Yeah.
Right. It's much more difficult to sort of get that sort of closeness and intimacy with your partner when you have to try to do it on a particular time frame that's
Yeah.
dictated by medical professionals. So like it's finding those other times, to be and feel close to your partner, and however that exists for you in your relationship. I think for us, we went on a lot of walks. We went out a lot. We traveled as much as our budget would allow. We just like found those times to be with each other,
Yeah.
without this sort of external pressures.
It was almost like going back in time, like dating all over again.
Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, you're right. We had been together for like a decade at that point. So we had our routine, we had our life. So when sex wasn't a way to necessarily feel close and intimate because it was this whole awkward thing now that was tied to trying to conceive, going on just like regular chill date nights was a nice way to be like, okay, for these couple hours, we're going to go out for dinner and we're intentionally not going to talk about this because we talk about it all the time anyways, but we're going to, just take that time to connect with each other.
Yeah.
Brought some fun back into it, trying to find like, okay, what are some cheap things that we could do? Because I mean, none of this is inexpensive. Even, we were lucky enough to live in Massachusetts where there is insurance coverage. But that still left a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. But yeah, trying to find just kind of fun things to do with each other to take the pressure off, take the mind off of everything, and just be like, oh, this is why we're here. This is why we're doing this together. Yeah. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Oh, I feel like we just answered this one. How do you reclaim intimacy when sex feels like it's tied to failure and disappointment? No. Well, okay. So one other thing I will say. So yeah, when you're in the habit of or the routine of being like this, these are the times that you're ovulating. These are the times you quote unquote have to or you're supposed to have sex. Also, sometimes saying to hell with the schedule and just be like, we're feeling it. Like, okay, yes, technically, maybe we're not, you're not supposed to ejaculate for 48 hours before this optimal window, blah, blah. Just being like, no, maybe it'll mess with our chances this month, but nothing's worked anyways. So, like, if we're both feeling it for non-baby making purposes, like lean into that, go with that.
It doesn't surprise me to hear you talk about exercising control.
Oh, is that what we're going?
The process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like telling this faceless, nameless process that it can go fuck itself for a little bit. And
well, yeah, that's that
that
tracks. Well, what do you think?
I think it's like how broadly are we? How broadly? I shouldn't say we because we talk about this a lot. But if you're listening, how broadly do you and your partner define intimacy? Right.
Yeah.
So like sex is going to be kind of a regularly scheduled thing for a little bit, and that's going to change the at least the sexual dynamic between you and your partner. And so, what other ways do the two of you find to be intimate?
Yeah.
Right. So, like for us, it was time spent together doing other things. It was dates. It was travel. It was long walks. It was honestly a lot of times just being physically present for the other person. And so like making sure that we were together doing things that we enjoyed doing. But like however you and your relationship define being intimate, like really prioritizing those sorts of experiences, right? Because it's going to be different for a little while.
Yeah. And I think it can be, I mean, nothing in this situation is necessarily fun, but it can be, I guess, a fun challenge, like coming up with those things too. If you're like, well, I don't know what intimacy might look like for me outside of sex. Like it's time to kind of explore some things and figure that out.
Yeah. The process is very difficult and however you can remain close to your partner, whatever fun that takes is going to be really helpful.
Yeah. So changing lanes a little bit. This question, actually, I think I talked about it a little bit, but how do you handle the internal guilt of feeling like your body is failing?
I think both of us felt that.
I don't know how you, I would say I could tell you how not to handle it. I think at one point, didn't I tell you we should get divorced and you should go marry somebody else?
I have blocked that out.
Sure. maybe that was like, I'm going to offer that the next time I'm feeling upset. So what I should have done was go to therapy. What I didn't do was go to therapy. I just spiraled and that didn't help anybody. But I mean, to be fair, like it felt like just another thing to add to the to-do list, another thing that we couldn't afford.
Yeah.
But looking back, like, yes, that would have been very helpful. And like I mentioned in the beginning, if anybody wants help connecting with a mental health professional, we do have a directory and I'm happy to help, make specific recommendations. If you have like a certain insurance that you're trying to use or you want to do in person, virtual, whatever, definitely reach out. Because that is probably my biggest regret is that I didn't talk to somebody about this. It always feels weird saying like I was lucky enough, but like where I worked, there were a couple of other people who also happened to be doing IVF at the same time. And like, that was really helpful having them there. And then eventually at some point in our journey, I got connected with AllPaths, then R&E, but yeah, not going to therapy during this is probably my biggest regret and would have helped with so many different things, but especially the feeling like your body is failing.
Yeah. I think I'll echo that a little bit. Like it's like as a man telling anyone that you're having a hard time conceiving a child is really hard. And so like you had that group of people at our job. I didn't talk with either of those husbands, right?
Oh, that's true. You guys
We
all knew
we
because
all
of,
knew,
yeah.
but I knew them, but
Yeah.
we never sat down and discussed it. Like we never had a meeting where the three of us could just be like, well, shit, you know? And so like you do have that internal, but I think it's tied, at least for me, I should say, in my experience, it was tied very closely with your sense of like being a husband and a partner and a man, right? And so the hurdle of just admitting that you were having a hard time with this to literally anybody was something I found really difficult. And I had and have a great like support group of friends and family members who I knew would be supportive of me, but I didn't access that. Right.
Yeah.
And so like I think for the partners out there, like therapy would have been great for me at the time. I was so many steps away from admitting that. I don't think like it was as simple. I think if I could go back in time and tell myself, my past self would be like, no, I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
But I would say like, talking to anyone, someone you trust,
Yeah.
about your experiences with this can be really, really helpful. I had you, but like you said at the beginning of the podcast, it's hard when your partner is also the person going through this with you, right? And so like it would have been lovely to have someone, I think, outside this process to talk to. And if I had been, I think, mature enough at the time to sort of access a therapist, that would have been great. But I think even talking with my friends about it, or even like connecting with the husbands of those people at our job that we knew were going through it, would have been, I think, would have helped a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think so. We have a men's group now. We didn't then, but I think a lot of the guys that I've talked to have said similar things where like, they have supportive friends and family members, but like, how do you even start to bring that up? There's something I think to be said about like the layer of anonymity that comes with talking to a group of guys that you've just met, or in any group, talking to a group of people you've just met, because it's a confidential space. They're not going to be judging you. They're not going to be like thinking about it when they're seeing you at the next like family holiday or work party or whatever. So yeah, I'm glad that there's a group just for men now.
Yeah, I would have loved that back then.
Yeah,
and like,
sorry.
I mean, it's strange. I don't know if you feel the same way. I find myself far more open about it now.
Oh yeah.
Like the number of people at my current job that I've just been like, oh yeah, I have triplets. It's because we struggle with infertility for years, Yeah. And like just trying to be that person that I didn't have, like back
in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so this is a question that I think everybody runs into, is like, what happens when you and your partner aren't on the same page about what comes next or any of the decisions that you need to make. I will say there's a really great article on our blog that someone who is a licensed mental health therapist wrote about this, using kind of her professional experience and her own personal experience. So if you're trying to figure out how do we navigate that, I definitely recommend checking that out. But this question I thought would be cool to talk about. It's what do you do when one partner is ready to stop treatment and the other isn't? Because I feel like we danced around this a bit.
Yeah. Those were our hardest conversations, and we had several of them. Right. I don't know if you remember this differently. I remember talking about this after each failed cycle.
Yeah.
Right. So like we get the bad news. Sometimes the bad news real bad, and sometimes it was just, no, it didn't end up working this time. And then I think each time we would have a discussion about whether or not we were willing to re-up. I remember being on the same page.
Interesting.
You?
No.
Okay.
I remember pushing for a much faster timeline. I feel like I felt, like the pressure of time. You're like, no, if like, okay, that didn't work. Great. We take like 6 hours to be mad about it. And then like, okay, what's next? So I think, we always came to the same point, but I feel like the time it took us to get there was very different.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, that I took a little bit longer to kind of process and grieve and be ready to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm more of like, all right, rip the band-aid off. Let's
Yeah.
keep chugging. So I think that's definitely one thing to keep in mind whenever you are at one of these decision points is like, even if you ultimately make the same decision, you're going to get there at very different speeds. And you need to respect that and acknowledge that that's a thing. Yeah, I don't think we ever got to a point where one of us was like, I want off of this ride.
Yeah.
And the other one had to talk them into it. I think it was
no,
more of like, I'm in if you're in still. Yeah.
That's my memory of it too.
Yeah.
I think we both independently came up with the same limit at the end of it too. I think we both had come to the same conclusion that we were going to do this many cycles, and after that, we were going to take a different path.
Yeah, well, I think like going into our final cycle, like we both knew like that was our last one. There's no way we could keep that up. Yeah, and we'd already started looking at other avenues, but yeah, I guess in that sense we were kind of lucky. We never had a really big disconnect. I mean, I know just from talking to folks in this community, there are times where there's somebody has a hard stop and the other person's willing to keep going, or there was somebody who wrote to us to share that they had been going through things for a while. They'd had some losses. They wanted to keep going, and their partner was like, I don't know if I want kids anymore after everything we've been through. And I can't I can't imagine. That's a lot. And again,
I think if there's a theme to our advice today, it's like, keep talking about it.
Yeah.
And like, this is one of those things that you really got to keep talking about, that the decision or the way the two of you were thinking about it at the beginning of the first cycle is not going to be the way the two of you might be thinking about it by the end of the third.
Yeah.
So like, you really got to readdress this often.
Yeah.
It's not like a one conversation and you've set the agenda, right? Like you really got to be kind of in communication.
Yeah. And these aren't easy conversations to have. So like do them, try to manage those conversations on your own if you want to, but there's no shame in tagging in like a couples therapist or somebody who can help you navigate those conversations, because they're hard.
Yeah, sure.
And like we've heard, I did not do them well.
There's plenty of conversations neither of us.
No. So, all right. This question is, what are some intentional acts of love and support that have helped you? So I will say a lot of people, if they're fertility treatment specifically, will have their partners do their injections to help with that. But as I know that you don't do needles, and honestly, I didn't want to even try and then have you passed out on the floor. But the fact that you were even just willing to be there. So even though it wasn't something you were comfortable with, that very first shot, I have a distinct memory of like sitting in the bathroom, and I lined it up and I closed my eyes before I did it because I was freaked out. And you were through the doorway, but holding my hand so that you didn't have to see any needles, but you were still there.
Yeah.
So just showing up in like, it doesn't need to be these big grand gestures, but showing up in like little tiny ways, even when you're like, this is not something that I would prefer to be doing right now, but I'm here to help however I can. Like, I think that went a long ways, because again, sure, big grand gestures might be nice, but yeah, just like finding little tiny ways to support and to show up, I think, go a long way.
Yeah. For me, when I think about intentional acts of love and support that helped me through this process, you went through fucking multiple for me.
It was for us. It wasn't for you.
Yes. But like, as the non-caring partner, that whole process, that whole experience at a really deep level felt like an intentional act of love and support, because it takes an amazing amount of persistence and energy and tenacity and just the emotional toll it takes on the other person. So every single day, for as long as it took us, like, I remember watching you go through this thing out of love for me. And that was really, like, underneath all of the just crazy emotions that come along with it, that was really powerful.
Well, that's very sweet. way to take it somewhere nice when I was just like, you held my hand when I did shots. Well, this has been really cool. It's been interesting. I don't think we've ever really talked about it ever.
Like not while intentionally trying to make it understandable for someone else.
Yeah. Fair. But yeah, no, it's been cool to get inside your head for a little bit, because I guess I still can't read your mind after
20 years.
Thank you for coming and chatting. And hopefully for people who are listening, something that we said was helpful, but it, the minimum, hopefully you feel like you're a little bit less alone going through all this. Mm-hmm. So you've listened to the show before.
Yeah.
So you know that we have 2 questions we like to ask all our guests. So we're going to put you in the hot seat for those today. So the first is, what is one thing that you would say to somebody who is just starting out trying to grow their family?
So many things. So like I'm trying to narrow them down. I'm sure like I know some of your guests.
You can give us a list.
So one thing I say to someone starting to grow their family, it's not going to go how you think it's going to go. And so be prepared and ready for that. Treat yourself and your partner with as much grace as you're capable of in the moment. And that with the understanding that that might not be a lot of grace sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. Like that this is going to be hard. And that it's you are going to come out of the other end. I think in a lot of ways a profoundly different person than how you went in. Not to raise the stakes on people, but it's a big, difficult process. And I'm a completely different person today, I think, because of our experience going through IVF than if we had conceived naturally. Like our family is obviously profoundly different, but I think our relationship is different. Our marriage is different. I look at the world differently, I think, having gone through that. And so it's hard to be like prepare to, become a different person, but there's a little bit of that involved. And yeah, treat yourself and your partner with as much grace as you can, because it's going to be really good for both of you.
I like that. Yeah. So our second question, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit from the partner perspective, but as you know, this is hard to do even with support. Yeah. But a lot of times, unless people have gone through it themselves, your friends, your family members, they don't know. Yeah. So how can somebody show up for a friend or family member who is struggling?
Yeah. So 2 ways. And like I can talk about, like, I think the only way I can approach this is through like the sort of husband male side of things, right? So like as your husband in this process, how can someone show up for a friend or family member who's struggling to build their family? If you've gone through it or you have experience going through it and you're comfortable sharing that experience, do it.
Like, don't wait for them to ask.
Don't wait for them to ask. Just share it. And the other person may not necessarily know what they need or what information is going to be important to them at that moment. I certainly wouldn't have at the beginning of this whole process. But if you've gone through IVF or you're familiar with it and you feel comfortable sharing that experience with your friend or family member, please do. If you haven't, words can't describe this process to you, to someone who hasn't gone through it before, but helping that person remember or be a part of a life that doesn't simply involve fertility treatments would be really helpful. So some of the times during this process that I felt the most relaxed or that were best for my mental health were the times when I was able to spend time socially with my friends doing exactly the same things that we would do if we weren't trying to conceive at that time, right? And so like there's, you can be there for your friend, but if they're going through something that you can't understand or necessarily empathize with, that's okay. But be there for them in a way that helps them experience things that aren't simply just the utter grind of fertility treatments. Because when you're in it, it takes over your life. It's everything you're talking about with your partner all the time, every day. And so to run into someone who's interested in all the other parts of your life that aren't fertility in the moment is really freeing.
But it can remind you that there are other parts in your life. It can be hard to remember that sometimes. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for being willing to do this with me today. This is fun.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you.
We hope you'll join us next time for more family building stories and resources. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you never miss an episode. And follow us on social media at AllPaths FB or visit our website, allpathsfb.org, for more information about our work. AllPaths Family Building is so grateful to the members of our circle of support who are vital to our ability to provide emotional support, education, and advocacy that is open to anyone struggling to grow their families. Today, we want to give a special shout out to our platinum sponsor, EMD Serono. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please help spread the word so that anyone struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. It's an honor to walk with you on your family building journey. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please help spread the word so that anyone who is struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. It's an honor to walk with you on your family building journey.